Alright everybody, I've been getting a lot of questions lately on herniated discs, bulging discs, herniated discs, ruptured discs, all that sort of thing. And people are actually asking, is that something that we can address? Can you still get adjusted? What do you do about it? And so that's what I want to go through with you guys today. To understand discs, you need to understand the spine. And so remember, the spine is what surrounds and protects the nervous system. Your brain's up top inside of the skull. All these bones, called vertebra, they form a tube, and inside of there is where your spinal cord is. And then there's little holes in the side, that's where those nerves come out to go out to the body. Now, the spine, from front to back, should be straight up and down. And from the side, it should have three curves, one in the neck, the mid-back, and the low back. And this not only forms the structure of your body so you stay upright, but also very importantly it lets you move around and protects the nervous system at the same time. The discs are the rubbery pads in between the bones that allow your spine to bend and move and sit and twist. And discs are interesting. Discs are actually kind of like, they're kind of like spacers, because you see where those nerves come out with the little holes there. The spacer is what allows space for that nerve to exit and send the messages from the brain out to the body. So when a disc degenerates, or if there's a problem with it, that's one of the reasons why it'll be so painful, because it'll start to damage and affect, clamp down on the nerve and the spinal cord. But the disc is also kind of like a balloon. And so the vertebra, if you can imagine, the two bones sandwich that disc, kind of like this. And if you guys remember what subluxation is, when those bones in the spine shift out of position, it actually damages those nerves. So if we can zoom in right here, for example, if you look at this nerve, these two bones, if they shift out of position, immediately they start to clamp down on that nerve. But unfortunately, what also starts to happen anytime the spine changes its regular structure, it really starts to put undue stress and strain on the discs. And this can cause a lot of problems. So for example, the disc that we said, kind of like that balloon, if you take those bones, the vertebra, and you shift them out of position, say like this, well, what you notice with that balloon is it starts to bulge out the other end. And that's exactly what they call a bulging or a herniated disc. And you can see an example of that here on the spine, right here, this red. And so as that disc bulges, most commonly it'll go out the back and kind of to the side, and it'll start to rub right up against that nerve, or even into the spinal cord. And that can be, one, tremendously painful, but also it will literally, as it impinges on the spinal cord and nerves, it'll cut off the messages the brain is trying to send out to the body, and then you'll have real problems as the body degenerates, dysfunctions, develops sickness and disease. And so, what do we do about herniated discs? Can we help? Can they be addressed? Well, really remember, the cause is the cure. Now, the medical system, what they'll recommend very often is, you've had that herniated disc for so long, they'll just take that herniated part out here, and they might shave it off, so they open up that space again. But meanwhile, the bones stay just like this. And so what do you think continues to happen with that disc? Well, it continues to deteriorate. Sometimes they'll even go in and they'll pull the whole disc out and they'll pack it full of like a cement, sometimes even like a metal bracket, and they'll just to hold that in place so it doesn't degenerate further. But why is it degenerating in the first place, and what caused the issue to begin with? And that always comes back to the structure of the spine and subluxation. And I'll tell you this, if your spine is in the correct position, from front to back, straight up and down, and from the side, nice and curvy like this, as long as your spine is in the correct position, it is virtually impossible to herniate a disc. Outside of a severe accident, some sort of like a real bad car wreck or something like that, there's just no way it's going to happen, because you're designed to withstand tremendous force. But imagine this, as if you take this curve in the neck, and say you straighten it out, or maybe you even bend it the opposite direction, and a lot of people, their spines look like this, and so immediately they're pressing down on the front of those nerves, and just like the balloon, the disc is starting to bulge and herniate out the back. So sometimes I'll show people their x-ray and it looks like this, and I'll explain to them all the problems they have. And then maybe they'll come to me later and they say, the doctor is worried that I have a herniation. And he did an MRI and he says, my discs are bulging. And I'll say, yeah, we knew that. Because if your spine is in this position, inherently it's going to start to stress and start to push those discs out the back to the side and cause problems. And the longer this stays this way, the more it's going to degenerate, the worse the herniation will be. And now imagine if you're already in a position like this and you get a car wreck, or you get bumped into, or you slip and you fall, or you have some sort of accident, or you spend all day long sitting at the computer hunched over even more, you can see how many problems that would create for you. So I had a patient ask, so what should someone do if they have a herniation? Who should they see? And I responded, well, if they want to get the problem corrected, I'm the only person they should see. And disc problems aren't something to take lightly. Obviously, that's something you need to have a knowledge of and be professional about and address correctly. The first thing I'm always going to do with someone who has a potential disc problem is see exactly what's going on in there. I know my boundaries, so if it's not something that I can fix, of course I'm going to get them pointed in the right direction. But at the end of the day, if you want to fix the cause of the problem, you have to correct the spine. And that's where cutting-edge spinal correction comes into play. So we take a neck that looks like this, we get it curved back the right direction. What happens to those discs? Well, the bulge that was there, as we fix the vertebra, what happens? Well, many times they'll pull right back in. That disc will start to operate healthily again, and the symptoms will go away, and the body will have restored health and proper function. And so at the root of the issue, we have to always address the cause, and that's going to begin with the spine and the nervous system. And that's discs for you in a nutshell. So again, especially if anything like surgery or any more drastic efforts like that are being made or considered, then corrective chiropractic structural care is an absolute first to see if something more safe, more corrective, something of that sort can be accomplished. One other thing I'll mention that they'll do sometimes even, with that herniated disc, the one that's bulging out, sometimes, and this is one of the worst things you can do, is they'll even take a needle and they'll actually inject right into there, or right into this area of the body, like a steroid or an anti-inflammatory or something like that, just to make it feel better in the process. And so a lot of people, before the doctor says you need surgery, he'll send them over to get some shots. And that just masks the symptom. It does not correct anything. Meanwhile, things are just getting worse, even though you feel better. So really, to me, that's an in-service to you. That's something that you want to get to the cause of the problem. And that's structural cutting-edge chiropractic care. That's what we offer here in our office. It's offered to you in all of Maximize Living offices across the world. And if you have any other questions or concerns, of course, don't hesitate to ask us. But there's the discs in a nutshell.